If you have an Inferno XTS and you want to keep it running in perfect condition, then you're at the right spot, because we're going to take a look at how to replace the O-rings, how to lubricate it, how to just keep this guy running in perfect condition on today's episode of What the Tech. The Inferno XTS is a very reliable little engine, and we've run over 500,000 cycles on this without doing any maintenance. But whether you just get a dirty fill when you get your tank filled, or some other source of contamination, things can happen. So let's take a look at how to do some maintenance. So to get started, there's going to be a few basic tools that will come in handy. First of all, an O-ring pick will be super useful. The O-ring kit that came with the engine, if you lost it or just need another one, you should be able to find them on the website. And then some sort of silicone-based lubricant like this Tect that I have here. You'll want to be sure not to use anything that is petroleum-based, because that can damage the O-rings. First thing that we'll want to do is just simply unscrew the cylinder from the front of the engine. That'll be counterclockwise. Once you pull it apart, make sure not to lose your spring. The next thing we can do is just go ahead and pull off the O-rings. You'll want to be sure when you do this just to try to grab the O-ring and not scratch the surface that the O-ring's sitting on. So you don't need to use a ton of pressure, just enough to pull the O-rings off. Next thing we'll want to do is take a lint-free cloth of some kind, and we'll just use that to wipe off the old lubricant here, any grime that might have been in the inside of your engine. Get my kit here. I'm going to take my 1.5 by 18 O-ring here, which is the biggest one in the kit, and just put it on the back side of the valve housing in the groove underneath the threads like so. Then I'm going to take one of my 1 by 13 O-rings, and that guy will just sit down right here in the front groove on the valve housing itself. So at this point, I'll just go ahead and take a little bit of my lube, and I'm just going to apply a small amount to both O-rings all the way around. And you don't need to go crazy on this. Now that we got the valve housing O-rings replaced and all of that lubricated, we'll go ahead and start on the nozzle assembly. So this guy will just slide right out the back of the cylinder. We can set the cylinder to the side, and then the nozzle will slide out the back of the baffle, just like so. So there's going to be another O-ring on the front of the baffle here. Once again, just make sure not to scratch your O-ring groove when you pull that guy off. And then one other O-ring that's going to be a little bit tricky to get to is another one that's down inside the baffle, right here inside this edge. So now, just like before, I'll take the lint-free rag and we'll just go ahead and wipe this guy down. Make sure to get any grime out of the O-ring groove here. We can just wipe the baffle off itself, and then I'm just going to try my best to wipe out the inside as well. This one, if you don't get it perfect, it's not going to be a big deal, but I'm just going to get as much as I can. We're just going to go ahead and replace the O-rings. First, we'll take a 1 by 13 and just put him right around the outside like so. Then we're going to take the 1 by 11 that comes in the kit, and we're going to install him inside the baffle. This is going to be a little bit tricky, just like it was to take it out, but the easiest way to do this will be to try to kind of pinch the O-ring like so. We'll set him down inside the baffle, and then I'm just going to take the O-ring pick, get one side of the O-ring started in the groove, and once one side is started, I should be able to take something like the end of the O-ring pick and just guide the O-ring down into the groove. Go ahead and lubricate the external O-ring here, and then just try and get a little bit of lube on the internal one. Once again, you'll not want to use an insane amount of lube on this. It's not necessary, but just a thin coating all around will be fine. So now we're just going to take our nozzle assembly and again pull the O-ring off the back of him. Wipe that all down, and then we'll reinstall the new O-ring onto the back just like so. Finally, you can take your lubricant, just put a thin layer around, and this time I'm going to lubricate a little bit up onto the poppet itself. The last thing I'm going to want to do here is I'm just going to take this guy. It doesn't really look too bad, but I'm just going to make sure that he's cleaned out as well. You don't really need to lubricate inside this guy. Just make sure if there's any debris or any FOD or anything like that, that you get it nice and clean. So the last thing here is not a step that you should normally need to do. But if you've done all this maintenance, you've put your engine back together, and you're experiencing some sort of an issue with getting low joules from it, maybe if when you have your nozzle apart on the bench like this, you just don't have a smooth feeling movement, it feels kind of gritty or something like that, then you might want to go ahead and take a look at replacing the O-ring inside here too. To do this, you'll just want a pair of pliers like these. You can just grab onto the C-clip on the front of your nozzle here, and then I'm just going to grab that tight and then pull them apart from each other. And now what you can do is you'll just push your nozzle right out the back of the poppet. Again, pull this O-ring off, clean it off, and install the last O-ring from our kit, which is a 1x7.5. Kind of lubricate this whole back surface of the nozzle here, and we can slide this back into the poppet. To reinstall this C-clip, you can just basically repeat the process from last time of pulling it off. We'll just grab it tight in our pliers here, get it started, and then you'll just want to make sure it's actually snapped all the way down into its groove. You'll want to make sure it's not sitting at a bit of an angle or anything like that too. Now to reassemble this guy, we're just going to take our baffle. We're going to take the nozzle assembly, just install it through the back. If anything feels tight, you'll probably want to check the O-ring that we've installed in the front of the baffle and make sure it's actually sitting all the way in there correctly. If it feels like anything's getting hung up while you're pulling the nozzle back through, you'll want to check that and make sure you don't damage your O-ring when you reinstall that. So now we'll just take our nozzle and baffle assembly and we'll insert it into the front of the cylinder. Once you get it right here, there'll be a little bit of friction as you get past the O-ring that's around the outside of the baffle, but it should sit right like that. So then we can take our spring, it will sit right inside the back of the nozzle, just like so. And the last thing you'll want to do is take your valve housing. You want to get your spring inserted into the recess on the front of the valve housing. Once you have that, you can simply thread it back together. The last thing that's worth mentioning before we wrap this up is that there is a threaded plug on this side of the engine and this side of the engine. And these plugs aren't something that you need to mess with. They simply plug some machining ports from when the valve housing was manufactured, and there's no reason to do anything with them. If for any reason you pulled one out or something like that and need to reseal it, they're just Loctited into here. So you should be able to just get some Loctite, put it around it, screw it back in, and you'll be good to go. If you have a specific leak that you're trying to address, like a slow leak out your nozzle, you can find the leak chart, which will tell you exactly which O-ring that you need to replace to address that leak. Instead of just replacing all of them, you can find that leak chart in the owner's manual for your Inferno XTS. So I hope you found this video super useful. If you liked what you saw here, drop a comment, let us know how we did. Maybe check out the channels for some other great videos just like this one, and we will see you out on the field.